Hey, as promised, I thought I'd do both a Switch port review, an overview, and a mini review of Messenger all in one video. Now, the game's been getting rave reviews. I think that it's a bit conflicting. Like the first half of the game is fun. There are some problems, though, that I'm going to get into. So the first thing is that it takes a little while to load, but once you get in, there's pretty minimal load times. I haven't experienced any performance issues at all. And I never thought I'd say this, but the shitty replacement for a D-pad on the basic Joy-Con actually works pretty well with this game because there's not really anything in the game that requires diagonal movement. Like there's no like diagonal slashes or jumps or moves or anything like that. So it actually works quite well. Obviously the game is still far more enjoyable when I'm playing it on my PS4 controller like I am now, but you can play this in portable mode just fine. Actually, the first thing you're going to want to do if you play this, at least on the Switch, you're going to want to turn down the music. As good as the music is, it's like really loud on this game for some reason. So I turned it down quite a bit. I had to turn it down even more so that you guys can actually hear me. You have to ignore the playtime. It seems to be glitched on the Switch version. I have not played the game for 20 hours. It's probably more like 6 hours. A lot of that has been running around and nothing. It's got a little bit of load times, but not a big deal. So basically the first half of this game is supposed to be like 8-bit. It has like, the music is really good. The musician they got is great. He does both NES chiptunes and FM synth. So when you get to the 16-bit mode, it starts playing the Genesis FM synth and vice versa. But the problem is that, like, this is the only fast travel that you have. You unlock these portals. Basically, when you get to this part of the game, some of these portals will be open, and you'll have to open the other ones from the other side. But this is the only fast travel you have. Basically, this takes you to one save point, and you can't travel to any of the other ones. So, a lot of times, even if you do know where you're going, you still have a ton of backtracking, and if you don't know where to go, you have even more, which is kind of the problem. A lot of people are complaining about it. The other issue is that obviously I'm not done with the game, but I have seen pretty much the end game. There really aren't that many items that like actually, you know, kind of give you more of a progression feel. Most of the items are just passive stuff. Like this just makes it so that you can get back up to the sky fields or whatever it's called. Basically, all your like traversal stuff you get in the first part of the game, like in the first 8-bit part. So the first like 2 to 3 hours, depending on how much you go off the beaten path to get all the secrets, or how many times you die or get stuck on bosses. Like you have like your whole moveset at the beginning, which sounds good on paper, but with all the massive backtracking this game has, it does kind of get boring. The character himself is actually very fun to control. Once you have all the moves and stuff, he's very fun to use, but the backtracking kind of makes it get old, and there's not really anything to look forward to. I don't think that they should have removed the whole thing with it being like half, you know, linear Ninja Gaiden-esque platformer and then half Metroidvania. I think they should have put more like items, like game-changing items in the second half. It's a pretty common problem in a lot of video games right now, is you'll just have like a bunch of stuff front-loaded, and then there's nothing really to look forward to. Dynasty Warriors 9 was the same way. I honestly don't know if I'll even finish the game. I have a feeling that they're going to listen to feedback and maybe add more fast travel points. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Like I said, you see all these save points here. The ones that are bigger, those are the ones where you can talk to the shopkeeper, you can buy upgrades, you can talk to him. Also, you can use the currency to buy hints, and the hints will just straight up tell you where to go. So you can't really get stuck in this game per se, which is nice, but at the same time, you see how big these maps are? Like, I have no real method of speeding this up. The only way that I can do it is to just go here. So let me go ahead and get to the first save point here. Some people don't like the FM Synth soundtrack, but I'm a fan of both FM Synth and NES chiptunes, so definitely works for me. You can actually buy the soundtrack. I think it's one of the things I'm going to buy this month. Even if I don't finish this game, I've listened to most of the music at this point, so it's not a big deal. So you have a bunch of upgrades here, however you're going to get pretty much all of them pretty quickly. Now some are pretty interesting, and the game is nice enough to make it so that you can get them pretty quickly. Being able to attack the enemy projectiles is pretty much a must if you want to get through the game quickly and smoothly, especially with all the backtracking. The Ukemi is pretty nice to have, kind of brute force some of the platforming that way. The wingsuit attack is necessary as well for some platforming, so they make it easy to get all the stuff that like actually is important. And the rest of the stuff is kind of extra. Like this is just to make it easier for you to find the secret items. This makes it so that when you die, it doesn't take as much. Or rather, the demon doesn't have to eat as many of the time stones or whatever before he goes away. So if you have 300 time stones, I think they're called like time shards or something, you can talk to him, you can get a hint, and it will basically just mark where you need to go on the map. In terms of your controls, it's pretty standard. You have a jump, you have an attack, you have the squirrel suit, which allows you to glide, you have an attack out of that, and then you have the rope dart. Now when you attack something in this game, notice there's a cloud on him. You jump again, that's called the cloud step technique. I think it's a really unique mechanic. The levels are designed very well, it's just how many times you have to go through them, especially if you don't know where you're going, is where the fatigue starts to set in, unfortunately. So, I'll go ahead and go through a few maps here. I think the game deserves the rave reviews, but I think that they should have, like, I don't know, added a little bit more content. You see a lot of the same stuff over and over. Like, the first half of the game is pretty much loaded with bosses, and then once you get to this part, you have, like, just a really long slog period where there's nothing going on at all. There's not really any bosses. The combat's not too interesting, the enemies aren't very interesting either, and I think that that was done on purpose because they don't want people to be too frustrated just with how much backtracking there is. Also, when you use the rope dart, you're actually invincible for a short period of time, so you can use it to go through attacks. Let's go ahead and show some cloud stepping here. Time-changing mechanic is actually pretty cool. I mean, it actually does change the game quite a bit. Or a little bit, like, the level layouts change and there are some cool puzzles involving it, but for the most part, everything is mostly just aesthetics. Like, the sprites change and the music changes. But aside from that, it's basically just like a glorified, you know, like, map changer mechanic, I should call it. It helps that the game is aesthetically pleasing, it's just that there's not really a whole lot of incentive to keep going through here. A lot of times you're just going to want to buy the hints or like look for a guide because the backtracking starts to really wear on you after a while. So let me see if I can buy a hint. You guys can see that mechanic. Yeah, he's not letting me buy him. Let's try going somewhere else. So from what I understand, there's basically no like endgame unlockables or anything. Apparently the ending alludes to that or something. Hopefully that is true. So there's no real rush to finish this. There's not like a cool like New Game Plus or anything. Most of the speedrunners are pretty much running the first part because it can be done in under an hour. I believe the record's like 40 minutes right now. It's a pretty good speed run. I mean, it definitely shows you the fun part of the game. But I think right now, for the full game, it's like a 3-hour speed run, and I think he did quite a bit of routing, so I'm not exactly sure how far down that will go, but it's not that great of a speed run for most people because it's just so long. But it's also only been like 3 days, so I'm sure cool stuff will be found in the future. I think the musician did an amazing job. It's just a shame that the game itself just kind of wears on you after a while. So the next save point that I could use to fast travel is all the way up there. So I'm going to show just how long it could take to actually get somewhere. The controls are great, the character is very responsive. I think that's definitely the thing that they got, right the most out of anything. The presentation of the game, the controls, the music is great. It just feels like they didn't do, like, enough testing. Like, I think they could have done, like, a focus test or, like, a closed beta for this or something, and, like, some speedrunners on it. I'm sure we could have things like cutscene skips and, more fast travel points to kind of smooth out the experience, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like they did anything like that. You know, some people don't mind a chill game where there's not like, super exciting stuff happening all the time, but the game does feel very front-loaded. Like, you have like tons of bosses in the first half, and then the second half is kind of, I wouldn't call it mundane, it's just kind of slow and uneventful is probably a better word. So anyway, here's the hint system. Basically, the protagonist is going to ask him, like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And the shopkeeper, who has a lot of funny dialogue, by the way, will basically say, oh, I need you to pay 300 time shards before I can give you a hint. And then at that point, he's just going to mark where I need to go. Yeah, see, here we go. Alright, so I need to go over there. I think this was the same place I was going. I have a hard time telling where everything is. So you also have to get the shortcuts from the other side, so that's one thing I definitely screwed up on. I went through a lot of these places multiple times, and I was never able to find the fast travel point, so that makes the backtracking even worse. Like, I think the easiest way that they could fix it was to make it so that all the main save points where you can actually talk to the shopkeeper and get back to the Tower of Time, if they made all of those fast travel points, that would make things so much better. It would make it a lot harder to get stuck and frustrated and not want to play. I think that's kind of the issue right now, is that the traversal is fun, but when you're wandering around aimlessly and you don't have the fast travel points to get to each specific part of the map, it just gets really frustrating, and there's not really a whole lot you can do to speed it up aside from just master the rooms. I imagine once more people finish the game, there probably will be more people speedrunning the whole game, because the game is kind of designed in a way where you're going to be going through the same things over and over unless you're following a guide to a T, or you keep purchasing the hints, but even then, like I said, it's still going to be pretty repetitive. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I'm not going to bore you guys with more wandering around. The game is quite fun. I don't want to sound like I'm ragging on it. I really, really like the first half. It's just the second half kind of just drags on. It doesn't really have the best pacing. There's not really a whole lot of a gameplay hook. You know, in most Metroidvanias, you know, you usually have interesting upgrades throughout the majority of the game. Maybe through like the last like 75 to 80% of it. You know, you have something new to look forward to, and by the end, you have all these cool powers that allow you to both, you know, kind of live out your power fantasy, which is what most video games are about. And it also makes it easier and faster to, you know, traverse around and find anything you missed. In this game, you don't really have that. Everything is pretty much in like the first 2 or 3 hours. And then you have some supplemental things here, and that's basically it. So, I don't know how they could really solve that problem. I imagine they could do like a DLC or a patch or something, but I'm not really sure how keen people would be to that. There's not really a whole lot of incentive to play the game more than once, aside from speedrunning. So if you're not a speedrunner, this is pretty much a one-and-done game. I heard that I won't spoil it, but the 100% reward is pretty underwhelming as well. By the time that you have it, there's not really a whole lot of game left to use it on, so it's very much a one-and-done single playthrough game. If that doesn't bother you, I think the game is a great value if you can tolerate it, but it does definitely get a little bit frustrating. Anyway, that's it. In terms of the Switch functionality, it works fine. You can use it with the Joy-Cons pretty well. You won't really have to use the triggers that much at all. The only trigger you use is L1 or L just to access the map. Everything else is on the D-pad and the face buttons. So it's a pretty simple game to play. You can easily play this on the go. Playing with the PS4 controller is definitely more responsive, but the game is actually designed without a lot of diagonal movement, or pretty much any diagonal movement at all, so you don't really need to worry about most of the standard left Joy-Con issues where anything involving a diagonal is just a nightmare to play. Anyway, that's it. I'll catch you guys later. If I decide to do more gameplay of this, I will, but I'm kind of at the point where I'm just like burnt out. Like, I don't really feel like playing much more. I've already seen all the cool stuff. The content is very light in the second half. There's just like not really a whole lot of cool bosses or upgrades or anything, so if you like, you know, constant gameplay hooks, then this probably isn't the game for you. If you just want to play something that's chill, with good music, great pixel art, and you don't mind it to be more slow paced, you don't mind getting stuck, then the game is completely fine. Anyway, catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.